In this lesson, we're going to examine the do-while loop, which allows us to conditionally execute a block of code multiple times. And to do that, we're going to create a small program that will calculate the current day of the year based on the date provided. Now I'm going to start with my days in month program that I created earlier, because that tells us how many days there are in a particular month. I'm going to create another project, a new project called Day of Year. And there I have my days in month program where I can view it, and there's my day of year, which will become my new program. Now for my new program, I'm going to use pieces of this old program, days in month. It contains some useful pieces. So let's open my day of year program. And I'm going to need a function that returns an integer called days in month. And that's going to take int year, and int month. And the body of that function is going to be everything in our logic from the original program. And I'm just going to call that return val. And that gives me a function I can call as many times as I like, and returns the number of days in any given month for a specific year and month. Now I'm still going to need this upper code, and that's going to go in my main function here. And I'm going to add to that Now that's a fair amount of logic reused, but there's still a few things we need to do. First of all, so I don't get confused, I'm going to close my original project, days in month. Now I have all the code from it that I can use. I'm going to set up what's known as a while loop, and the syntax for that is while, and then an expression which should evaluate to true or false, 0 or non-zero, and in this case it's going to be month greater than 0, and we're going to need a running total as well. And num days is going to be incremented by days in month, and we're going to pass in the year and the month. And we're going to count down. Decrement the month each time we go around the loop. Now the way the loop works is, while this condition is true, this code block will continue to be executed over and over again. So the first time through, we decrement the month, and we do that ahead of time deliberately because we don't want to count the current month. You know, we want the days in the month of all the previous months. And here we're going to num days. I'm going to want to add the current day of the month. And that should give us the number of days, or the day number of this year. Let's save that. Let's build it, and I have an error here. And that error is because I made a classic error of placing my function below the function that calls it. If you do that in C++, you have to add a definition, so the simplest thing to do is to place any functions you want to call higher up in the body of the code, and then the compiler will already know that it exists when it compiles this function, so you won't get that error. And here I can see that I have to update my return value. And that's a good thing about compiling as you go. It will help you find your errors and kind of act as a to-do list of things you still need to change. So I didn't need a breakpoint there. So we built and we are ready to go. Let's go ahead and run this and see how it tests on our first try. The year is 4 digits. Let's pick the year 2000, that's a leap year, the 12th month, and the last day of that month, which should give us a 366th day. So 31st of December 2000. And we get 397, which is exactly 31 days later than I expect, so I can jump down here and see immediately that I'm running too many months. Now, that's because I decrement it at a time, so it really needs to be month greater than 1. So now our build, let's test it again one more time. Year 2000, 12th month, 31st day, and now we get the correct result, which is day 366. Now, to demonstrate an alternative syntax of the while loop, what I'm going to do is run it again with a very early date, say the 10th of January. So it doesn't matter what year we pick. Month 1 and the 10th of January, which should give us day 10. And of course it does give us day 10. Now there is an alternative syntax to the do loop, and that is you have a do statement, same body, and the while comes at the end. The difference is, when you have this format, the loop runs through at least once. So I suspect that this time our answer is going to be wrong. 2000, January the 10th, and we get day 41. And that's because it ran through one time. You know, month 1 should never have been calculated because we add the first month after the loop. So essentially we got 31 days in January plus however many days were in January. So we got 41. So there are two ways to do this loop, but they do act differently, and that's a very important distinction. Now the correct one for what we're trying to do here is what we had in the first place, which is the while statement. Let's build that, make sure we're good to go before we make any changes. Now say we were in a loop and we wanted to leave early. Say the maximum number of days we ever wanted to calculate was 180 for whatever reason. Now, I can't imagine that we'd want to do that in this instance, but it does give an example of what we're trying to do. We add a break statement. And that break statement, similar to how it behaved in the switch statement, says break out of this structure early. And the structure we're talking about here is a while loop. You know, break always refers to a loop or a case. So this block is ignored and the if statement doesn't need to be broken out of. It will in fact break out of the while loop early, and the while loop will stop executing. So if I run this for, say, Feb 10th, then we get day 41, which is accurate. But if we now run it with different values, say November something, month, November the 2nd, greater than 180 days, exiting early, and we know this is going to be wrong now, day 186. But that does give us an example of how to leave a loop early with a break statement.